guys? It's Little Man from YouTube. Back at you again. Outside. It's a little different. Usually don't do videos out here like this, but anyway. Today is story time. Today we're going to be talking about something particularly that happened 10 plus years ago. That was like when I was a kid and, small. But yeah, I have 3 stories to compile into. The first story I shall introduce you to in a minute. But if you guys aren't a subscriber yet or have really heard of me, you can subscribe to me now and give me a good like. Share my video around. Leave a comment below. But yeah, we're gonna start with story 1 in just a bit. Okay, story 1. I was just about 7 years old at this time when I was younger, and most of my childhood kind of revolved around me being outside like this because I was like younger and I was a big butterflies and bugs fan. I used to love kind of just observing mostly like what was around me because I still love seeing the air, and how wind blew the clouds and how butterflies moved around. It was just like I was very observant, I guess, as a kid. I was more just, I guess, in tune with what was going on around me. So yeah, it starts off with I was like 7 years old. I remember coming in. This is actually the place I still hang around. I used to run around in the grass and play around it. And I used to remember staring up at the sun, just kind of like just imagine like clouds. Because right now that's practically today was, but it was like any day. Like as a kid, I just loved watching butterflies go in the air. Because as a kid, I had like this weird kind of like I made stories about the butterflies. Maybe they were going off and to go see like some kind of distant place. Maybe they were gonna go and adventure off and see all kinds of like bears. Maybe they would see something that's mythical that hasn't been seen. I just thought a lot of things as a kid. I used to think like I would want to be a butterfly in my next life. I was very imaginative, I guess, and kind of just like my imagination became kind of my coping mechanism as a kid, because I don't technically talk about this like my past, like a lot of like things, because back then I used to be very I didn't grow up in a very functional, I mean it functioned, but it wasn't exactly the best environment. I had a lot of things that happened that as a kid I didn't really know how to take it, because 7 years old you're kind of just taking in all this, not like a lot of the stuff as when you're an adult you understand what it is. But yeah, my parents weren't exactly like the closest when I was getting older. They started the partying and things weren't going good. In my head I just thought of butterflies and cartoons and whatever like else is on TV, because I remember the TV used to be on a lot, so I'd watch it, or I'd be either playing with my dolls and that or something like that. Back then everything was just simple. But yeah, I remember sitting there and kind of just making up those stories and just going like, yeah, you know what, someday like I want to do something huge. I want to be like a writer. I want to do something that when I get older I can look back at it and just smile. But yeah, about that time I was doing all this stuff, outside and enjoying the air and everything, and just enjoying kid life. I just had all these imaginations and everything like that. But in the middle of all those good things, I knew bad things were happening. I knew there was separations, there were things happening, but I just kind of wanted to see the positive. But when you reach a certain age, it gets harder to really focus on positive when things are going wrong. But As a kid, if you can imagine, if I'm pretty sure a lot of you were a kid at the time, I was just kind of trying to live happily in a dysfunctional situation. But aside from all the negative, the positive thing I love to do was go and look at all the butterflies. I still love even just like seeing them in like shows and that, because I still kind of study. I used to remember one time I made that story like I talked about when I was in the grass, and I was like, I just all those like adventures a butterfly would have. I feel like back then I didn't really understand what I wanted to be as a kid. I didn't know if I wanted to do like be a reporter. I didn't know all these stuff. I kind of just made up jobs in my head. But as I got older, I realized I wanted to be a writer. But point taken from that, I was very imaginative. It was my thing that kept me happy in the most troubling times in my life. But I didn't know how troubling they were until I was at least, sorry, we're near the cars, but I didn't know how troubling they were. But I think as this story leads to the end, you know, everybody has like a passion. But as a kid, you kind of just search for it and you kind of do your own thing. You're playing outside, or you're maybe now because this generation is different now. Because I grew up in a generation that was kind of just in the peak of the technology, just at the peak. You know, getting very technological, but you know, I still like the outside once in a while. But yeah, I feel like everybody has like a passion now. Everybody sees stuff. Maybe you're more into like technology. Maybe you're like a big YouTuber thing like I am. I do this kind of off and on, but you know, you kind of just realize what you want to be as you get older. But sometimes people just don't really navigate. You know? Even school, like I could say school and that navigates you to a point, but in the end you get to decide whether or not what you want to be. Maybe it's something that's like not realistic. Maybe it'll take some time to get to that situation, but you know, life happens. But yeah, the conclusion is stories like that, you know, as a kid, you know, me kind of going through this imagination of creating a story out of a butterfly, like randomly, kind of stuff like that, that you realize you're processing something. You don't know if it's gonna be a career or not, but you know, it's kind of just play. It's kind of fun for you as a kid, but you don't realize it could be potentially a hobby or a job. You don't know. But yeah, that's story 1. Next on to story 2. Alright, so story 2. Yeah, this is about 8 years old, if I can remember very vaguely. This is like my like birthday party. I was very excited. This is before all the crazy YouTube stuff, but you know, and the technology. But I remember this kind of area. That's the reason why I placed this area here. But the story was, I remember my birthday party, and you know, my dad being there before that. You know, a lot of stuff like that. Just kind of started me and my dad. But I remember kind of like sitting on his lap, you know, like do stuff like that. This is kind of like before all the craziness, you know, the separation and that. Yeah, we were sitting there, and I was all happy that day because, you know, it was my birthday, and I was excited. And I didn't really, you know, when there's like stories, you know, people, you know, like movies, maybe Netflix. I don't know which kind of movies you guys watch, but it's like the moment where the character's like so happy, everything's going great, and then the kind of before the downfall basically of any like situation. I didn't really know how bad it was, but in that moment of like my birthday, I was excited. You know, I was doing so many things, you know, like playing with my cousins, and, you know, just enjoying life in general. And that was, you know, having my birthday cake and everything. It was just perfect in that moment. But you know, like I kind of go back and replay that moment every time, like at my birthday, you know, and all the fun stuff. But yeah, I remember But I remember kind of just thinking that moment, like, man, this is perfect, because my whole life I've just been surrounded by family, by people that care about me. I didn't really have any friends because most of the people were all like cousins and everything, so I didn't really have any other friends besides cousins. But I remember that moment that I was excited and everything. My mom and my dad, they were still, going through their differences, and my dad worked a lot, but he kind of had trouble with holding jobs here and there. My mom was working a lot, so she never really got to stay home every time. But yeah, I remember watching TV a lot as a kid back then. Like during this party, I remember between the birthday party and that end story. But basically, I was kind of I just knew my parents were trying. They were trying to have a functional, somewhat okay family, but like, and that party was kind of just the sweet memory that I kept and remembered, that my dad was there, even though how crazy as he was very, kind of just was class clown material. Basically, it was just goofy all the time, and it wasn't really the parent figure you should have. I know as a kid, I just kind of, in my head, I was just like, well, it's my dad, he's goofy and that, but I didn't know how bad it was until then, around that party. After that party, things kind of just started to tumble and things got worse. But I kind of just remember that party, and I remember kind of walking around, because this is basically where I used to walk around. I used to walk around this big field of like grass, nothing but grass, and walk around and just trying to enjoy life. I remember being at the parties, is where the cabin used to be, but yeah, I remember having, I guess, a lot of thoughts, like of where my life was going to be at, after the separation. It was just after the birthright and everything just kind of slowly, I could tell it was getting bad. But yeah, feel like everybody has like that favorite birthday party as a kid that you're like, yeah, that was the sweet moment of life. I enjoyed it, I had fun, and things were good, back then. I feel like a lot of people can understand that. But like, people kind of assume like, oh yeah, families are supposed to stay together, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes things don't work out the way it's supposed to. Some things don't work out, but I kind of just looked as, I realized when you're older, as a kid, you kind of have expectations as a kid that everything's going to be alright. Sometimes you don't know that things are going to get better or worse in the future. So, at that moment, I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed that part. I remember having my cousin there, and, and just feeling, happiness. All my cousins were there. It was just the bittersweetness. As a kid, I was just happy, but I knew things were kind of on the rocky type of boat, I guess, how I can put a metaphor towards it. It was like a rocking boat. Either it was fun, or sometimes the boat would get too rocky and things kind of just collapse. And I feel like that was my childhood, because this video is going to be basically just me talking about my childhood stuff. But yeah, this is basically what my childhood was like. It was just a lot of happiness and not happiness, because most of my childhood, it was either good or bad. But in the end, sometimes, that's how life is. I feel like everybody, kind of stereotypes that your childhood should be filled with nothing but happiness. But sometimes, in this crazy world with so many messed up people, so many people with problems that they can't even solve them, even at what age they can try. But I feel like me being who I was always trying to look at positive. Even though at the end, when I got older, I kind of became very, very more pessimistic, or what they call pessimist, because as a kid, as I got older, I kind of just stopped looking at the positive, because You know, the more positive I looked at, things got worse. Things got heavy. I'll discuss that in a very later video because it's more childhood stuff, it's more of my positive stuff. But just to sum it up from the story, was my birthday was kind of my symbol of happy. Like the whole month was symbolized as my happy time as a kid. And yeah, that's story 2. It was story. Okay, third story is our final one. I feel like I have like 3 stories. My third one wasn't exactly the most happy memory, but I remember at the moment I was just like, well, I guess this is how it is now. But I remember this is back when this is when my mom became single and that, you know, for a little bit. But I remember playing with my dolls. This is kind of like what I discussed before in the first story, like, you know, discussing like me playing with my dolls. But then I remember I was playing with my dolls and I'd be like, I was sit there and kind of think, you know, and think about stuff like that, because I was, you know, my whole childhood is based on making stories of everything I had on me. Like, I had dolls and that, I had like all kinds of like figurine things, you know, all kinds of like, how to describe it. It's not figurines, it was like plushies. I had like a bunch of like toys and that. But I remember making stories in my head, and that was like my basis. I didn't know back then I didn't want to be a writer. I didn't know that was my destiny stuff. You know, I had like other aspirations. You know, I wanted to be a singer, I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be this. I was more interested in, I guess, an idea of wanting to be part of something that was like a story, I guess, how to explain it. But yeah, in that dark time, because it was dark, because my dad had just left right after that, because, you know, as a kid, everybody, you know, parents fight. It's a healthy thing. Some parents get into arguments, but my parents got into arguments every like few days, or sometimes just 2 fights in the same day. It was just like stuff like that, you know, things I knew that were uncomfortable in my head. Every time that would happen, I would get very triggered and hurt and that, because I'm like, things are starting to fall apart, this is getting bad, you know, stuff like that. Back then I didn't really know how bad they were getting, but when the separation happened afterwards, it changed me, I guess, mentally, because before I used to be like, oh, positive, this and that, happiness, sweet memories, and then everything kind of just stopped at a halt, you know, because kind of the feeling of wanting good things to happen kind of just left my spirit, basically. But yeah, Hickey. Cats. But yeah, right after my dad like left, I kind of just reverted to like still trying to find positive things, but still I was upset, and there were like times where I just didn't know if things were going to be okay, because my mom wasn't exactly the most, you know, because I love my mom regardless of what things she has done, you know, constantly. I always kind of, you know, don't but yeah, I constantly just don't, I have like this kind of like flip between back, because, you know, a lot of times I never really confronted my mom about it, because, you know, at least she did attempt to stay in somewhat in my life, because my dad kind of had this thing where he just stayed as far as possible. You know, he lived far away, but there were times where I was just kind of, you know, he called, but mom at least tried. She wasn't exactly the most functioning mom, but she tried. And, you know, that's what kind of credit I give it for. But, you know, as a kid, you kind of just feel, you don't know how to feel about, you know, your parents being kind of, you know, neglecting in the situation. You know, they're kind of in their world trying to fix what they can, and then they're trying to fix you, and it's kind of like how a parent doesn't know how to fix themselves, and it's, you know, just like tough situations like that I didn't understand until I got like a little older, to realize how tough that must have been, you know, kind of having your own issues, because my mom had a lot of issues that I had to learn about as I got older, that they were bad, that were to a point where she couldn't help us. She couldn't, you know, be the full mom to the extent that I wanted to be. But as a kid, I tried to fantasize it, I guess, in hopes that she was somewhat okay. But yeah, it affected me a lot as an adult. I guess I got more older and I just kind of whooshed. But in that moment when I was enjoying all the wonderful things, you know, my mom still being there, at least I still have my mom, and you know, my dad would be gone. It was just kind of like that moment where I used to play with my dolls, and like I said, just thinking about what stuff would happen if I got older. I was like, maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to do that, maybe I want to be a chef, maybe I want to sing and be a chef, maybe I want, just like these random ideas that came to my head after my dad passed. And it was kind of me not sure if I wanted to be positive or to be, you know, not as, you know, oh yeah, like positive things are gonna be okay. And it was kind of like, oh, what if this happens? So what if, you know, I end up alone? What if bad things happen? What if my mom disappears in this situation? You know, I just had a lot of things that I didn't understand that was gonna happen. You know, as a kid, I was just like not sure if things were gonna be good or bad. You know, it was just kind of to a point where I had to like argue with myself for like 3.5 years as I got older. And you know, around that time, my mom was, you know, trying, and I had my sister. Yeah, I had a sibling besides I have a brother too, but you know, it was my sister and me. It was just basically that. And I remember mom trying, but you know, she had, you know, her issues of staying, you know, together, like with herself, you know, independent in that. You know, she tried to have a couple of guys here and there, but things were bad. Yeah, but back then I was trying to stay positive, even though at that point, you know, losing your dad to like, you know, separation, not having him there, as a kid, it did affect me. And I didn't realize until I got older, because I thought, oh, this is gonna sweep over, you know, we're gonna reconnect and everything. But discuss that in a later video of how that happened. But you know, at that moment, I was just kind of like unsure of what my future was gonna be like, you know, without my dad in the picture. More cars, sorry. But yeah, basically the third story wraps up is I didn't know what kind of future I'd have. And you know, as a almost 9-year-old, I didn't really understand what was going to become of that, because I was kind of like, oh, what's going to happen if this happens? What's going to happen if that happens? And I just had a lot of expectations that I just thought maybe and positively that everything's going to work out. But you know, I wasn't sure. You know, the future, you don't know what's happening in the future. You're just going to kind of assume that everything's going to fall into place. But you know, as older as I am now, things, you know, will change. But yeah, hey you guys, sorry the cat litter just wanted me to pick it up and pet it. But if you guys like this video, and hopefully I did, it's mainly all about my childhood memories and blah blah blah. But just kind of stuff I wanted to get off my chest, you know, things that happen. Yeah, but you know, it's good to talk about it. And excuse the cat, not hers. Put you down. There you go, Joey. But you know, things in the end don't work out. But remember, if you guys are going through something like that, just know things will get better eventually. You just gotta make sure, stay sharp minds, talk to somebody about it. Don't be like me. I kind of just held a lot of it in, you know, and that kind of created more problems as I got older. But if you guys like this video, please like it up, subscribe, share it up, comment below anything that you guys maybe want to make it anonymous if you want to. But if you want to message me, there's social medias in my channel that you guys can get a hold of me. If you guys want to bring up some stories that I can put up later in the video, you know, make it anonymous. But yeah, I will come back with another video. This is like another 3-episode series where I'm just going to be talking about firsts. But this is the intro to it. This is just my childhood memories, what it's going to be titled on top. But yeah, anyway, this is Little Amanda, peacing out. You guys all have a good weekend, the rest of the weekend, because I'm going to post this today, hopefully, if I can edit it all out. But then any weird things, but yeah, I'll see you all, and bye.